Everything began on that warm summer evening. My name is Claire and I live in a small town. The biggest feature of our town was the fair that took place every summer. Colorful lights, carousels, and the scent of cotton candy. It was a source of fun for everyone. But for me, that evening held a meaning beyond anything else. That day, I saw someone new working at the fair. His name was Jake. He was tall with dark hair and a hint of sadness in his eyes. When I first saw him, it felt like I was in a movie scene. Jake was the fair's mechanic, and everyone was talking about him. He traveled from town to town with the fair, living without being tied down to any one place. My first conversation with him happened while I was watching him repair a broken carousel. I walked up to him and asked, "Do you need any help?" Jake wiped the sweat from his brow, looked at me, and smiled. "If you have a set of tools, then yes," he said. In that moment, I realized how much his smile affected me. It was as if the world had paused for a second. From that day on, I went to the fair every evening to find Jake. Talking to him became a ritual for me. He told me about his life, the places he'd been, and his dream of settling down someday. I told him stories about our town, my childhood, and my school years. Jake became more than just a fair worker to me. He became a symbol of escape, of adventure. One evening, on the fair's closing night, Jake made me an offer. "Claire, will you come with me?" he asked. "Our next stop is Colorado. There are fairs there too, new places, new people. I want to be with you." My heart started racing. This offer felt like a dream to me, but at the same time, it meant leaving behind everything I knew. That night, I thought long and hard. Being with Jake, hitting the road with him, but my family, my friends, and my town. Leaving it all behind wasn't easy. When morning came, I saw the fair being packed up. Jake was waiting for me. I walked up to him and looked into his eyes. "Jake, I love you," I said, "but this life isn't for me. I need to stay here." Jake was silent for a moment. Then he smiled softly and said, "I understand. Maybe one day our paths will cross again." I hugged him and we said our goodbyes. After he left, the fairgrounds felt empty, as if it had never existed. Years passed. I still think about Jake. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had gone with him. But I know that the decision I made that night was the right one for me. Jake remained an adventure, a memory in my life. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories are the ones that never happened. After Jake left, my life returned to normal. The fair came every summer, lighting up our town with colorful lights and fun. But after that summer, I could never go to the fair again without searching for Jake's eyes in the crowd. No one could take his place. Over time, the short but intense memories I had with him became like a dream. Sometimes I asked myself, did it really happen, or did I just imagine it? Years went by, and I became a teacher in the town. Teaching children to read and write, seeing the excitement in their eyes brought me great joy. But deep down, a part of Jake's wandering spirit remained within me. I searched for the adventures I couldn't have with him in books. Every story I read made me feel a little freer. One day, a new family moved to our town. Their little girl, Lily, joined my class. Lily loved the fair and begged her mother every evening to take her. Her excitement reminded me of Jake. One evening, I decided to take Lily to the fair. We rode the carousel, ate cotton candy, and played games together. The happiness in Lily's eyes brought that summer back to life for me. It was the fair's closing night. After dropping Lily off at home, I wandered the fairgrounds alone. The lights were off, and the sounds had faded. It felt just like the night Jake had left. Just then, I heard a voice. "Claire?" I turned around and saw Jake standing there. Years had passed, but he was still the same Jake. The sadness in his eyes had deepened, and his face had a few more lines, but his smile was still the same. "Jake," I whispered. "What are you doing here?" Jake walked up to me and smiled softly. "I've been here for a while," he said. "I got tired of wandering. I wanted to settle down somewhere. And this place is special to me. My heart raced. Jake had come back to our town. I looked at him and felt the emotions inside me come alive again. "Why now?" I asked. Jake looked into my eyes and said, "Because I couldn't forget you, Claire. I looked for you everywhere, but nowhere had someone like you. That's why I came back. Maybe we still have a chance." In that moment, I thought about the decision I had made years ago, being with Jake, starting a new life with him. But this time, everything was different. I wasn't a young girl anymore. I had built my own life and carved my own path. Jake's return gave me another chance to choose. That night, Jake and I talked for a long time. I told him about my life, my teaching, and the town. Jake told me about his experiences over the years. By morning, I had made a decision. I looked at Jake and said, "Stay here, live here with me. Maybe we're late, but we still have a chance." Jake looked at me with that same sadness in his eyes and smiled. "Okay," he said. "This time, I'm staying." From that day on, Jake settled in our town. We started a new life together. Now every summer when the fair comes, Jake and I ride the carousel, eat cotton candy, and watch the excitement in the children's eyes. Jake is no longer just an adventure for me. He's my life partner. And I know that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin later than you expect.